Hi everyone, welcome back to my podcast, The Helpline. I am back here today with Dr. Pritha Dasmahaptra, who is, of course, a gynecologist and obstetrician. And today we are going to talk about hymens.
Very important.
Very important subject. People talk about hymens all the time, whether it's about their period issues, whether it's first time sex, whether it's the virginity myth. But hymens get talked about all the time. Nobody really knows very much about the hymen. There's so many questions, so much confusion around it. So I'm going to ask you some very basic questions today.
Sure.
Like we're going to pretend that you're talking to someone who knows absolutely nothing.
Okay.
And we're going to start building it up from there.
Sure.
Okay. So can we start with what exactly is the hymen?
Okay. So the hymen is a kind of tissue that is found at the entrance of the vagina. The vagina is like a tube that is made of muscle, and it expands and goes back to its normal size, and the hymen is like some sort of like a frilly tissue at the entrance. The hymen has no definitive bodily function. It doesn't add anything to our body. It is like the appendix. Its presence or not presence doesn't make any difference to us. You take it out, it tears, you're still going to be the exact same person with the exact same physiology. Nothing is going to change for you. You may ask that why did we have the hymen if it serves no purpose? There is some thought that maybe it helps to keep the vagina safe from infections and foreign objects in infancy. However, it is not a scientifically proven fact, and we don't really know why it exists, but we do know that at least in the adult life, it has no function.
It has no function. Okay. So you say that it's a tissue, thin?
It is usually thin, but then again, the thinness or the thickness can vary between individuals.
Okay, but it's a fairly thin.
It's fairly thin, yes.
Okay. And can you see it with the naked eye? Like if you were to look into somebody's vagina, can you see the hymen?
Now, since at the beginning you mentioned that just consider that whoever is listening doesn't know anything about the hymen. So if you have no idea about the hymen, if you're not trained, then you will not be able to identify the hymen from other tissues that are in the pelvic area.
So it's not like a curtain across the entrance.
No,
of the
I know.
vagina.
We love to romanticize the hymen, isn't it? That it's like there's a flower behind the hymen, and there's a mysterious curtain that you just move, and then you will see the flower of heaven blooming for you. I'm sorry, that doesn't really happen that way.
So if you were to look in, if an average person was to get a torch and look inside somebody's vagina, they would not be able to see the hymen because they would not be able to recognize it.
No, exactly. They might see some, like skin tags. Sometimes we can have skin tags coming from a nose or ear or some other part of the body. So they might see some skin tags. Those could be the hymenal remnants. So when I say hymenal remnants, what I mean is that as we age, the hymen changes. It changes with sexual experience, but even without any sexual experience, it's going to change.
So let's go back to the hymen, which is intact. Vaguely, what is the color of the hymen? What is the shape? What is the size?
Color, same color as the rest of the tissues.
Okay.
That's one reason why it's difficult to identify, because it's not like the beautiful floral curtain you have at your home. Shape wise, it can be like positioned like a ring or like a crescent towards the back of the vagina, but there's no definite shape. It can be anything, or it can be hardly present, just little bit of frilly tissues around, nothing else. Thickness wise, it can be, it's usually relatively thin. Sometimes it can be a bit thicker, but they are all within the normal definition of normal.
And the size, how big is it?
They're just tissues that line the opening of the vagina.
Okay.
So there's no definite, there's no definition of the size of a hymen.
So let's say that, the vagina, as we know, for various reasons, stretches, contracts. So are we saying that this tissue also stretches, contracts, the
No,
hymen
the hymen
stretches?
doesn't stretch or contract. So imagine a door. So you have got a door. Imagine that is the entrance to your vagina, and we have these like wooden borders of door. I don't know what
The frame.
the frame, exactly, the frame. So the hymen is like the frame. You can have like a thin frame. You can have a thick frame. Also, things can change with time. It does become thinner with time, or it can go inwards with time. So in the early 20s, if someone really could feel their hymen outside, with age they might feel that the hymen has gone back inside, and that's all very normal.
Okay, so with age, the hymen anyway starts to become thinner
Yeah,
and starts to stretch and disappear.
disappear, yes. The hymenal tissue itself doesn't stretch, but when the vagina stretches, it stretches with the vagina.
So yes, I remember this being told this actually by Dr. Ali, who is a sexual consultant here in the UK, that as you get older, the hymen itself starts to disappear.
Yeah, exactly.
So it becomes thinner, it
Exactly.
starts to sort of become little skin tags and disappear to the side. So it actually starts to stretch. So this romanticized notion that we have that, if you are 40 and you suddenly decide to have sex for the first time at the age of 40, that there will be this hymen that is protecting your vagina. By now, the hymen is probably gone
Exactly.
anyway. It doesn't
Exactly.
exist.
It has not done any job in your life because it is not supposed to do any job in your life. And then what is the body going to do with it? Nothing.
It just
Like, yeah,
disappears.
exactly. Unlike the vagina has a job. The job is having sex, job is having children, but also the job is also to let the period blood out.
Yeah.
So the vagina is doing things even if you're not having sex or not becoming pregnant, but the hymen has no job.
I want to make this point very, very clear because people don't understand what the hymen is. That as you get older, the hymen actually starts to disappear on its own. And it's not going to be over there waiting for you if you are celibate, that if you haven't had sex, that it's just waiting there intact. It is gone.
It has gone, exactly.
Now, when you say it is at the entrance of the vagina, let's say if you take the lips of the vulva, how far in can you find the hymen? Is it that much in? Is it that like 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters?
So I don't want to put any number to it because the lips are also going to be different for different people. Some people have naturally thin lips, some people have naturally thicker lips. It's the same as the lips of our face. They are going to be of different shapes and sizes. Shapes, most of the lips are the similar shape, but the sizes are going to be different. So it is not going to be fair for me to assign a definite number to that. But it is between the lips and the vagina. So the vagina is an internal organ. You can't see the vagina from outside. The hymen is situated at the part where the vagina ends or begins, whichever way you look at it, and the lips.
So almost like if you look at your mouth where the teeth are.
Yes, so the inner part of the lips, between where the teeth starts growing and the lip is ending.
Okay, so literally before the teeth where
That's correct,
okay,
yes.
so that's where the hymen would
That's
be.
correct.
We are told that the hymen has holes in it so that period blood,
Yep.
etc. can come
Yep.
out. Can you describe what that means? Is it like a mesh, almost like a jali, like a sieve? Is it like a tissue with holes in it, like cheese, like Swiss cheese? So what does it look like?
So the hymen will be like a ring
Okay.
or a crescent. Okay?
Okay.
Sometimes it can be fully membranous, like a membrane, completely covering it. Now, if it completely covers, then the period blood cannot come out. So that is called imperforate hymen. Sometimes it can have little holes in
Okay.
them. So the period blood may come out, but it may be difficult to put a tampon in or do masturbation or have penetrative intercourse. Sometimes there may be a ring, but like with another little bit of tissue in the middle, like a septum, like a wall in the middle. So there are 2 holes. It's easy for period blood to come out, and inserting tampon or having sex or masturbation may be possible if someone just goes in through one part all the time. But there could be problem in tampon insertion and all other penetrative activities as well. In most of the cases, we don't really see small holes. We see like an opening.
Okay.
But some people may be born in such a way that they have these small holes, and these can be addressed quite easily by a simple surgical procedure.
So if you had, let's say, very tiny holes or an imperforate vagina, hymen, and you put a tampon in, would it tear that?
If you have an imperforate hymen, then you might struggle to put a tampon in at all. And if you forcefully put a tampon in, yes, that it can technically tear. But for completely imperforate hymen, most of the times we need to do a small surgery. But with the other types of hymen where there are small tiny holes or there's a wall in the middle, a tampon insertion can tear that, yes.
Okay. And when we say tearing it, because like you said, it's like a tissue, when we say tearing it, we're not thinking of tearing it almost like a piece of paper or a piece of mesh.
So if we want to compare, the hymenal consistency will be like, those very thin tissue papers that we use to dab our lipstick. We can probably compare that to those tissues. It's not going to be like a hand towel. Okay. So the vagina is going to be a hand towel consistency. The lips are going to be hand towel consistency. But the hymen is just going to be that little thin translucent tissue that is just good enough to dab our lipstick and for nothing else.
Okay. But still, when you push the thing in and it tears very easily, it's not really a painful thing when it tears, or does it create pain or discomfort?
It can, but it doesn't carry, the good thing is that it doesn't have a lot of nerve endings and it does not have a lot of blood vessels. It has some, but not a lot. For that reason, even when it tears, we don't start bleeding heavily, and we don't have a lot of pain. It can be a bit uncomfortable. Other thing is that any kind of vaginal penetration can be uncomfortable.
So again, I just want to point out that for a lot of people, like somebody wrote to me recently saying that my husband can't penetrate because he can't get past my hymen. Now, taking into consideration that this is, let's say it's a normal hymen, it's not the hymen that is causing either the pain, the blood, or any of that. It's the normal bend in the vagina, which is the problem.
Probably you guys need to spend some time getting into the mood, using lots of lubricants, understanding what works well for both of you. The standard advice.
We've been told so often that, first time sex, you'll have to push past the hymen will tear, blood will come out, you have to show. All this nonsense of the hymen tearing and blood coming out is nonsense.
Absolutely. I mean, it's 2025. Let's just at least start the conversation around the hymen and demystify the hymen. It's not the magic organ that pretty much everyone thinks it is.
Now, when it tears, just for my own is there likelihood to be, you said there's a couple of blood vessels, couple of drops of blood, is it?
It may or may not. Some people may not have any bleeding at all. And that's also normal. Yeah.
But it could also have a drop or two.
Yeah, it could have, yes.
But more than likely, if you're having sex, the blood is coming from elsewhere.
Now, some people have thick hormone normally, and they may have more bleeding than others. Again, there are so many variations of normal that I don't want to put any definitive tag to it. A little bit of bleeding may happen with hymenal tear. Now, once again, I'm sure we will come to this question later. Hymenal tear does not necessarily happen during first time sex. Yeah. You may not have noticed when your hymen tore. So some people can have a couple of drops, as you said. Some may have more bleeding, some may have no bleeding.
And like we said, that if you're by a certain age, let's say you're by the time you're 30 and having sex for the first time, your hymen has disappeared naturally by then.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have the hymen anyway. Okay, somebody had actually asked this, that is the blood during sex from the hymen or from other parts of the vagina, is there a way of telling the difference?
No, there is no way of telling the difference. Blood is blood. We can't look at the blood and say where it has come from unless you actually see the bleeding point. Now, the way the vagina and our organs are placed, that for you to know where the bleeding is coming from, it's very difficult. You might have a mirror in front of you, and if it's really superficial, you might be able to identify. Otherwise, for you to know where it's coming from, it's difficult. If your partner can identify, that means it's relatively superficial, because as I said, the vagina is an internal organ. You are not going to be able to see what's happening inside the vagina.
Now, when the hymen tears, let's just call it tearing for the time being. When it moves away from whatever it's doing from the center, and you said it becomes like skin tags. So, like the little tags that we have on our cheeks or wherever. And those are inside your body. They're left inside your body. So it just sort of moves back and becomes like skin tags.
Yeah.
What exactly will tear a hymen? Now, this is another question that comes in a lot. People say when they're cycling can tear a hymen. Yeah. Or jumping can tear a hymen, or running can tear a hymen. What exactly does that mean? Like, from what you've described, there's this thing inside us which you have to basically touch to get through. So why would running or jumping tear it?
Yes, but then if you remember, I compared the consistency of a hymen to that of a very thin facial tissue, and we know how facial tissues are. We don't have to do much to tear them. So if you imagine having that kind of a tissue in front of your vagina, you're cycling, you're horse riding, or you are exercising, we're moving our limbs, right? And it tears very easily because it is not very strong, and it's not supposed to be strong as well.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that, because some guy wrote to me saying that the hymen is very strong and it is not easy to tear it, and it doesn't tear that easily. It only tears when people have sex. So when women say, oh, I went cycling or running and it tore, that is nonsense. So not correct.
Absolutely not. Red flag.
Definite red flag. I mean, those guys are definitely
Definite red flag, yes. Don't date guys who comment in Seema's profile.
Absolutely. I think that any guy who is being abusive on any of my videos, just remember that they're generally red flags. Just don't date them. But, okay, so this is really interesting, because this one guy wrote to me saying the hymen is very tough and a woman can stretch her legs to 180 degrees, but it'll still not tear the hymen. And I was thinking, I don't know, that is not correct, right?
It is not correct. I would really like to have his confidence, but not his
not the
misinformation, not the brain. Yes, that's not correct. He's wrong. He's completely wrong.
You know what I would love to do is I'd like to get every woman to donate her hymen to us so we can cling wrap this guy in all the hymens and then suspend him at 180 degrees and see if that tears, because if it doesn't, if it's such a strong thing, it won't tear and he'll be safe, right?
He should be, yes. Maybe
I think, yes.
You need to make him the offer.
Yeah, I think I'm calling on everybody for, please send us your hymens. And we need to prove this point once and for all. Okay, next question. Can hymens be different in different body shapes? Meaning, like ethnically, from different parts of the world, our bodies are different in different parts of the world.
Yes, not ethnically, but in general they can be different. We have different hair. We belong to the same ethnicity. Our hair is different. Our nose shape is different. Just like that. The hymen is going to be different for different people.
So is there anything that you can tell us about hymens that generally there's a myth around or misinformation around that we need to correct?
Well, I think everything around the hymen is misinformation. I hardly come across any information on the hymen. The hymen is not as great as it is made out to be. It has no job. It is probably not going to bleed the first time you have sex. And it is going to be rudimentary or even absent as we grow up, as we grow older.
Now, why do you think there is this incredible sort of myth around it, around the virginity? Where do you think that developed from?
Patriarchy is a rough guess.
But of course, I mean, it had to come from there. But I'm just wondering why the hymen, like the one thing in the body that has absolutely no function. It has no substance. It's that thin a tissue that a little bit of movement can actually
Yeah.
tear it. So it has no substance. It actually disappears with time on its own. So it's not that it's like a long lasting thing that
No.
stays in there. And yet we've made this out to be the basis of a woman's purity.
So
And
this,
her
yeah,
value depends on
yeah.
it.
I don't know where this obsession with purity has come from. It's annoying at a personal level, and also as a gynecologist, I find that distressing. But I can tell you that there's absolutely no evidence, since you mentioned virginity, about any kind of virginity test. Now, on a moral and ethical level, no one should be worried about anyone's virginity anyway. That apart, even if I talk from purely a medical or gynecological point of view, there is absolutely no test that can ascertain anyone's virginity. And I know there's a lot of conversation around the two-finger test that apparently can tell you if someone had sex in the past or not, but that is not correct. Worldwide, experts, gynecologists, legal experts, they have all agreed that there is no basis for this two-finger test. Now, I am aware that there was at least a virginity law here in the UK at least, and also in India, and the law in India was from our colonial times of a two-finger virginity test. And when we studied medicine in forensic medicine, we learnt about the two-finger test as well. As far as I know,
What did you learn about the two finger test in forensic medicine?
yeah,
Tell me.
like an investigation for rape, because at some many years ago, thankfully, I hope it's still not practiced. I won't be surprised if it still is. Rape victims had to undergo, as if they did not undergo enough already, they had to undergo the terribly dehumanizing two-finger test, because if they were already sexually active, then the rape
Didn't count.
allegation did not stand.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Carry
Yeah,
on.
it's a law that we inherited from colonial times.
But you know what? We still have it, and we still have that
We
mindset.
still
I
have it,
just
yeah.
want to say that as a culture, we keep going on about how, oh, they colonized us, they put their laws on us, they destroyed our culture. But we are actually holding on
We are holding on
to
to.
those
We are holding on.
ideas.
Yes. From what I know now, I could be wrong. I'm not a legal expert. It has not yet been criminalized in India, but the Supreme Court or some court has mentioned that there is absolutely no need for the virginity test, and it has been instructed to the medical community. And from what I know, the medical commission, the council who looks after medical education and designs medicine curriculum in India, they have also taken it off from forensic books recently. Now, since we are right now in London, and we are talking about virginity testing, in the UK, it is criminal offence.
To
It
do a
is a
virginity
criminal
test, yeah?
offence to not just to perform, offer, aid, or abet virginity testing. That applies to all British citizens as well as residents. That means resident visa holders, and it has got and it applies to not just to the UK, but if citizens and residents of the UK get it done in some other country, it is still a criminal offence, even if it is legal in that country.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. And talking about this, I'd like to understand there is a lot of surgery at the moment where they're trying to put the hymen back.
Yes, so that is called hymenoplasty. That is supposedly a kind of surgical procedure to stitch the hymen together to get virginity back. Hymenoplasty is also one of the criminal offences in the UK. The same thing that I just described for virginity testing applies for hymenoplasty as well. That it's a criminal offence in the UK. In India, as far as I know, it is not yet a criminal offence, but there is conversation around all
Making
the
it
ethical,
illegal.
yes, all the ethical concerns around this kind of a procedure. I know it's still legal in some parts of the world, but
Can you describe it? I mean, from what you have just explained to me about the hymen, I'm just wondering, what is a hymenoplasty then?
so the thing is that, Seema, I mean, I have never witnessed a hymenoplasty. Thank goodness, I never had to be involved with that. But I know that it is a procedure that unfortunately is commonly performed, and in fact even in the UK the criminalization has recently happened. So it used to be performed in some private clinics in London as well, even a few years ago. And what it involves is stitching the hymen together so that they appear intact, and when the person is having sex with their new husband, the husband doesn't have any reason to worry or
And has the thrill of being able to break through and give them pain again?
I don't know. I mean, I wish I knew, but
Because
these
I
things.
realized that actually men are not interested in the pleasure of a woman. It's the pain that she feels that makes her acceptable. They are looking to see whether she has pain. They don't go out of their way. I mean, from all these comments that come in, where they say, oh, we'll put two fingers in, and if she's getting the pain, we know that she's a virgin. I get this all the time. And I think, okay, so you're not saying it's her first time. I'm going to make her so comfortable, so aroused that she won't feel any discomfort, that she'll actually enjoy it. They're looking for the pain because that is what makes her acceptable. So we are not. The first time sex for a man is supposed to be pleasurable. He's talking about the excitement, the pleasure. First time sex, they're actually hoping for the woman to have pain. So we have a narrative of pain for women where they're supposed
Yeah,
to have pain.
but we romanticize that pain as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
Whether you're having sex or childbirth, having labor without epidural, things like that. And uh, she did not have any pain relief in labor. But then that's what society wants us to do: sacrifice everything, be in pain all the time, and then we will be women of worth.
This is actually, I think, a really good understanding that I have certainly received today of the hymen. And I think that just this idea that having to break through something, which is not how the hymen works, apparently, um, but the idea of breaking through something, giving her pain, making sure that you can witness the pain, is what the whole narrative around hymen started with.
Yes, it is very problematic. When you asked me to speak on the hymen, I was just trying to understand what really is happening nowadays with the hymen situation, and I came across a news article about some community in India. I don't want to get into the details. But it seems that they have this rule that on the first night when the couple consummates their marriage, they have to do it on a white sheet, and there will be community elders right outside the room
Who will
to
check the.
check the white sheet. If there's no blood, then they will shun the woman. I mean, I was horrified reading that. And then I vaguely remembered that when I was young, I had female cousins who are older, who who had not yet married but were probably about to get married, and they mentioned about carrying alta. Alta is that red paint thing that we Bengalis use on their first wedding night, and just using it just in case if they don't bleed.
I mean, it's 2025 and we're still doing this. And what I don't understand is, why is this not part of our textbooks? Why are we not taught about the hymen? It's part of the body. Even if it's a pointless thing in the body, it's part of the body. It needs to be in our study
Yeah.
syllabus.
Yes, it should. Yeah.
I just remembered that I actually received this message from this young woman who says that she's just got married. She was a virgin when she got married,
Okay.
and that she didn't bleed on her first night, and that she's feeling really let down in herself. And apparently, her husband said to her, please don't worry about it. It's just a social construct, there's nothing to it. But she's feeling upset that she didn't bleed because she said, I didn't even masturbate. I never had sex. Why didn't I bleed? So it's almost like a badge of honor. It's like a trophy that women are carrying. So we can't totally blame the men for
No,
this.
no, because
We
from
bought
childhood,
into it.
yes, we have been conditioned with this vague idea of purity that we have to abide by, and one of it is bleeding when having sex with your husband after getting married for the first time.
And that if you don't bleed, that somebody is actually out there feeling distressed and upset. And I really don't know what to say to that, except that I hope we can do better for ourselves. I really hope that we can as we move forward. Preetha, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about hymens. It's just one of those subjects, like we said, that's been shrouded in mystery for far too long. I'm sure that more questions will come in that I haven't thought about. But I just want to finish the conversation by reiterating everything that Preetha said, is that it is a thin tissue. It's like a little frilly tissue, which is at the entrance of the vagina. So if you think of your mouth, it is between where the lips finish and the teeth start. So it's that up front in the vagina. It is either round like a ring, or it is a crescent shaped. So it might not even be fully sort of covering the
No.
entrance. It could have some holes in it, maybe it doesn't. It breaks through very easily. So we can use the word tear for
Yeah,
it.
yes.
But it tears through very, very easily because it is that thin. It's like the little thin tissues that we use to dab our lipstick. It's that thin. So any kind of movement will actually tear it. It is not unusual for it to not be there after a certain age. And by a certain age, as you get older, it is definitely not there because it has no function in the body. So it starts to disappear. So even if you are at the age of 30 a virgin, you will not have a hymen anyway. The only thing that is happening with hymenoplasty is where somebody's donning your hymen back together
Yeah.
again, is for you to be able to experience pain in the presence of your partner so that they can see your pain, and that gives them a sense of validation. I think aside from that, the hymen is absolutely nothing, and we should be able to put it behind us.
It doesn't contribute anything. It doesn't add to your sexual pleasure. It has no role in childbirth, no role in getting pregnant. It's just there.
It's just that. And so I hope that you found this really useful. And if you enjoyed the podcast, if you found it useful, do as always comment, like, subscribe. And if you have any other questions, I am, as always, on info.seema.anand at gmail.com. Send me your concerns, send me your questions. We will try our best to answer them as much as possible. And in the meantime, stay safe.